Hello, everyone, and welcome back to DaVinci Guitar. I'm Abigail, this is Jim, and we're here to talk today about triads. Triads are an exciting topic that we are going to delve deep into over the next few weeks and show you the theory behind them and also how you can play them on the guitar. So let's jump in with some fun theory. So to understand what a triad is, we're going to look at that root of the word. We have that tri prefix in there, right? The prefix tri means three. And so if you think about a triad, it's simply a three-note chord. Now, you could argue that, well, we do know that all chords are made up of three notes, right? A major chord is a root, a third, and a fifth. It's made up of three notes. But if we were to play a G chord like we learned down here, that root form, it's a G, a B, and a D, right? But it's repeated several times. All those notes are repeated. That's why we can't call it a triad, because it's not a three-note chord. Instead, we would have to use a form that we're going to learn in a few minutes, which is right here. It's the top of that form, actually. But it's a G, a B, and a D, and that's it. That's the basis behind a triad. It's just three notes, no repeats, and we can use them in their various inversions. We're actually going to look at how we can play triads in inversions, just like we learned with the inversion forms on the guitar we talked about even a few months ago now, right? So let's go ahead and jump in and learn these forms. The root triad form we're going to learn in the key of G. We're going to work in the key of G because if we think about G, B, and D, we can stay right here on the guitar in a nice position instead of having to be all the way up here. That gets a little dicey without cutaways, right? So we're going to go ahead and start on root note G. And this is the form we're going to use for this root triad. It's made up of just a G, a B, and a D. Right, so just three notes. 1, 2, 3, G, B, D. Now, we're going to go ahead on up to our first inversion triad form. This actually is pretty simple because if you watched our Back to the Basics for the Beginner Guitar series, you know what a D shape looks like, right? This D shape here. What a lot of people don't realize is that that D shape is actually a triad, a first inversion triad form. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to go up to the B note because we're going to go to first inversion, which means we base our root note now off the third note of the chord. We're working with G, B, and D. The third note is B. We're going to go to this B, and we're going to actually use this form here on this B note, this D shape, just G, B, and D, but B is now this root, okay? You can actually see how a D chord, a D, F sharp, and an A, if you're basing it off this F sharp note, you can see where people get this, right? That D chord everyone loves. It's actually a first inversion triad form. Pretty cool, something now you can quiz your friends on, right? So we went to first inversion. Now we're going to go on up to second inversion. And second inversion means we base it off the fifth note of the scale and the fifth note of a G scale. Count up, it's D. We're going to go to this D note here. And the form we're going to use for a second inversion triad, the form you need to know, is this. It's a G, B, and a D. D is now on the top. A three-note chord, just three notes. 1, 2, 3. So now we have root, third or first inversion, and fifth, which is second inversion. So those are the triad forms you need to know. They're there on the screen for you. Go back, pause the video, learn these forms, write them down, right? And get used to playing them. You can apply them in any key whatsoever. We can work in any key. We can work in F. We can work in B flat. Anything. It's a great way for you to learn how to play quickly, and it's quite simple. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jim, who's going to continue.
Thanks, Abigail. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with the triads, and I'm going to explain a little bit about how I use them. Now, the triad starts on a G note. It's the root, okay? So what I do is I find my root, and I play my first form. That's how I look at it. Then I find my third, and I always play my second form. And when I go to my fifth in the melody, I go to the third form. Now, this is what's interesting. When we play this G triad, we have a B in the bass. And most pros are going to say that this is a first inversion G chord. And I totally agree with that. But the problem is it doesn't help me in a song or music because it's the melody that I care about. And that's why it's easy for me to just go G, B, and D. It's very hard to figure it out from here because this would be the third, this would be the fifth, the D, and this would be the G, the root. That doesn't help me. It helps me more to see it as first form, second form, and third form. And this is how I practice my triads. I try to go up and down the board as fast as I try to hear my melody. So if I hear, and that's how I practice my triads. And I try to practice them in all 12 keys. Abigail?
All right, Jim. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful explanation of triads and a way to practice it. We hope that you all are able to use triads in your own playing. It really is a transforming way of playing because these forms are so simple that anyone's able to pick them up, right? Those inversions we learned at the beginning, they're kind of big. You have to stretch a lot. But these are great for just playing 3 notes, which is all you need in the chord, right? You don't need all those repeats technically in music because the chord is just 3 notes. So use these triads in your own playing and experiment with them and learn the melodies that you want to hear, just like Jim said. Thank you so much for watching DaVinci Guitar, and DaVinci Guitar out.